Good evening, Mrs. Parks. I choose this visual/audible presentation for my showcase. From Unit 1, I will be covering Explain the evidences and conclusion Darwin and Wallace contributed to the theory of evolution. And from Unit 2, Describe the subatomic basis form chemical bonds formation, including the roles of protons, neutrons, and electrons. According to the article titled, Belief in God and Evolutions Are Not Incompatible, one of the most modern controversies facing religion is the relationship that exists between science and religion, specifically about the creation of life. I will begin by analyzing the religious doctrine. Under the first chapter of the book of Genesis of the Old Testament, an explanation is given to human beings of their existence. Specifically in chapter 2, verse 4, where it states, Lord God made the earth and the heavens. And in verse 5, it states, Lord God formed the man of dust from the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And then man became a living creature. What this means, according to the belief in God and evolutions are not incompatible, that God created human beings pretty much in their present form at one time within the last 10,000 years. This doctrine was strong because the power Catholic and Christianity had. This doctrine then was questioned when Darwin proposed a theory of evolution in 1859 on its book, The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selection. After the discoveries of his great voyage, observations of natural world in their different journeys, hypotheses that later become what is now known as the theory of evolution, Darwin proposed that natural selection was the cause of creation, a hypothesis that was then supported by his colleague Wallace. Natural selection was their contribution to the theory of evolution, which is explained as the ability of organisms to evolve. Change empowers organisms to adapt to changing environments. According to the article Evolutionary Theory, the main outline of this theory begins with the observation that the individuals of a species vary slightly one from another. In one of his voyages, Darwin noticed how the same species of birds have different qualities according to its environments. Struggle for survival within a species led Darwin to understand the individual's mechanisms. Darwin understood that individuals that have variants that give them an advantage in the struggle to survive will let them live longer and leave more offsprings. And since offspring tends to be passed on from parents, this meant that beneficial characteristics will tend to be inherited more frequently than less beneficial ones. Over time, this causes a population to be better adapted to its environment, especially if the environment changes, leading to gradual change in the character of a population. The relevant periods are enormous, so that eventually a species can be transformed to such an extent that it will be a new species. According to Darwin, the main idea of his theory was formed in 1839. Still, it was not published until 1859. And this is because he was pushed to publish to avoid being prompted by the self-trained naturalist Alfred Russel Wallace, who in 1859 sent him a letter that proposed a similar theory. According to the article, Belief in God and Evolutions Are Not Incompatible, in the years since Darwin argued natural selection was the cause of creation, the evidence for evolution has become overwhelming. The fossils record has provided evidence of evolved species such as whale with feet. The discovery of DNA now provides an irrefutable digital record of the relatedness of living things. And even the physicists have compared by providing the Earth is 4.5 billion years old, providing plenty of time for evolution. In 1859, the evidence convinced many people, but not without challenges. And that was the lack of knowledge for Darwin about genes or even how the chemical components that make up the earth and life work. Now, I will analyze the subatomic basis of chemical bond that make up for life. The article Chemical Bond Making, Bond Breaking, and Electron Transfer in Solution explains that the electronic theory of organic chemistry provides a powerful structure to help our understanding of reactants of the roughly 6 million currently known organic chemicals. Matter is created with the creation of an atom, which is the smallest component of an element that retains the chemical properties. An atom contains protons that are charged with positive energy and neutrons that have no energy in their nucleus. The atom has electrons that have negative energy orbiting around its nucleus. The number of protons in the nucleic equals to the number of electrons orbiting. For example, it's calculated to be 79 protons to 180 neutrons. If a single proton is added on for this element, then the whole element will change and transform to something different. The atom holds 2 electrons on its first orbit and 8 max on the following orbits. If an atom wants to be stable and do less work, they need to create bonds. To illustrate it, if an atom has a layer with too few electrons, let's say just one, it will try to give that one electron to another atom. So that way, it won't use that energy just to spin one electron. And this electron will be given to other atom that has most of its electrons in that orbit, but it might need one to be full and stable and also to be more efficient. This process of giving one electron to a different atoms are called bonds, and there are different type of bonds. There are ionic bonds, covalent bonds, and hydrogen bonds. Each of these are different. And the first one that we use for the example of just giving one bond to other one that might need it and to work efficient, it's called ionic bond. Covalent bonds are is formed when an electron is shared between 2 elements and are the strongest and most common form of chemical bond in living organisms. And these are formed between the elements that make up the biological molecules in our cells. And then we have hydrogen bonds, which are weak interactions of bonding due to the slight positive or negative extra charge. These chemical bonds are for the creations of new elements, and eventually these new elements will create which we know as matter, that are things that occupies space and has a mass. An example of this are the trees, plants, fruits. I would like to finish this presentation saying that evolution is not a chaotic and wasteful process. Evolution occurs in an early universe and on a foundation of natural laws and faithful processes such as explanation of the composition of matter. That is why the dispute between religion and science continues, which calls on Christians to essentially choose between science and faith. Thank you.